you hook up with Eazy-E? Because, I mean, you on Ruthless Records now.
Yeah, we plugged up with the homie 3 years ago. He heard our music through some other people. He liked what he heard. He met us. He found out we real from the streets, you know. So he wanted to with us.
Compton wasn't just a city, it was the breeding ground for legends, for chaos, for a whole new wave of culture that nobody could ignore. Out of those gritty streets came gangster rap, and with it came one of the most controversial figures the game has ever seen, Eazy-E. This man wasn't just pushing music into uncharted territory, he was living in the middle of battles that stretched way past beats and rhymes. Eazy had enemies lurking in places far darker than rival rappers or shady execs. We're talking white hoods, swastikas, and groups that wanted to spark nothing less than a full-blown race war in America. And the wild part?
Because they love Eazy-E too. Number low riders, the brown side guys, and, you know, rest in heaven Toker. Eazy had real backup.
Oh, yeah. It's still, like, people still ride for Eazy, like, you know what I'm saying?
Cut your head off, leave it on the porch type backup.
When things got too heavy, Eazy's protection didn't just come from his own hood or the rap scene. It came from an unexpected place, the Mexican gangs of Los Angeles, who treated him like one of their own and swore they'd ride for him against anybody. See, just weeks before his death, Eazy-E dropped one of the most shocking confessions of his life. In one of his last interviews, he admitted that the Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazi skinheads had literally put a price on his head. This wasn't some rumor floating around. It was straight from his own mouth. He even said the same groups had a bounty on Rodney King, the man whose beating by LAPD had already set LA on fire. But the goal wasn't just to silence a rapper or scare a single man. Their mission was bigger, darker. They wanted to ignite a racial war that would rip America apart.
Technology is so high, right?
Right.
So if you shoot somebody, you go to jail forever. So the kids, you don't want to go to jail forever, right? So they got this new thing out there. People sell them all the time. They get blood from somebody with AIDS. Yeah. And then they shoot you with it.
Oh,
so
well, that seems bad.
That's a slow death.
Yeah.
An Eazy-E thing, you know?
And what made Eazy's admission even scarier was the way the FBI handled it. Eazy revealed that federal agents never gave him a warning. That's right, they admitted to warning Rodney King about threats, but when it came to Eazy, nothing. No heads up, no protection, nothing. When asked why he thought that was, Eazy gave two chilling possibilities. Either they didn't care about him, or even worse, they wanted those groups to succeed in taking him out. This wasn't just rap beef anymore, this was political, this was organized hate backed by groups who weren't hiding their faces. And the feds knew exactly who was behind it. Their eyes were already locked on a young man named Christopher David Fisher, only 20 years old, running with a group called the Fourth Reich Skinheads. The stuff prosecutors accused this kid of planning was absolutely insane.
Eazy getting beat up.
Yeah,
by
you
Suge
know.
and his people.
You don't want that problem.
Well, I
wouldn't want that problem. Shit.
Yeah, I watched that movie and stuff like that. I don't think it's true because Eazy-E had the whole Alondra behind him.
The Fourth Reich's blueprint wasn't small-time violence. They wanted to blow up churches, assassinate Rodney King, and set Los Angeles on fire with chaos. Fisher was considered so dangerous that when he was arrested, a judge refused to give him bail, even after his own parents promised round-the-clock supervision. But here's the craziest part. While he sat in court crying like a kid, he was being accused of some of the most hateful and violent plots you could imagine. This wasn't just empty talk either. Fisher bragged about throwing a Molotov cocktail at a synagogue in Westminster.
We got to Ruthless when the death row, Ruthless, beef was cracking. So they thought they were gonna overpower my boy because my boy was by himself. But you know Destiny took Toker and the brown side clique to Ruthless.
Kid, he was being accused of some of the most hateful and violent plots you could imagine. This wasn't just empty talk either. Fisher bragged about throwing a Molotov cocktail at a synagogue in Westminster. Thankfully, the fire didn't catch because of the rain. But swastikas and the words "Die Jew Pigs" were left on the walls. He was accused of bombing the home and car of an Asian student in Lakewood, and even tried to take credit for other bombings, including one targeting a black man. And tied up right in the middle of all this hate, Eazy-E's name appeared on their assassination list, Alongside Rodney King, Reverend Cecil Murray, and Danny Bakewell, Eazy was marked for death. His paranoia wasn't paranoia at all. Federal investigators had proof that his name was on a literal hit list drawn up by skinheads who were armed, organized, and dead serious about carrying out their plans.
Told E, we rolling with you, fool. We got your back. What's cracking with this death row ruthless? Who you want gone? Cause we ain't around.
Think about that for a second. Being a rapper in the early 90s already meant dodging rival crews, label drama, and the streets. But imagine knowing that national white supremacist groups wanted you dead. That's a whole different type of fear. These skinheads weren't just talking. They had pipe bombs, rifles, Molotov cocktails, and a network spreading across the U.S. Even the Anti-Defamation League hadn't clocked how deep they were until the FBI exposed them after an 18-month undercover investigation. These guys were spreading propaganda coast to coast, claiming members from California all the way to New Jersey. They weren't thousands deep, but as Rabbi Abraham Cooper once said, you don't need a big group to make your point. With enough firepower and enough hate, even a handful of extremists could cause national chaos, and Eazy was one of their prime targets. But here's where the story twists.
Everywhere he went, he called his Mexicans. He called his brown brothers. Where you at? What's cracking? Swoop up over here, come in the Lolos. He be in Beverly Hills at an expensive restaurant, 20 Mexicans drive up. Hoping we ran into somebody from that road. Hoping. Because we wanted to make a statement. We wanted to make a statement. But luckily, never.
Because even though Eazy was marked, he wasn't left defenseless. The streets of Compton had his back. And the loyalty that stood tallest for him, the Mexican gangs. These weren't casual supporters. These were people who swore they'd go to war in the streets if skinheads ever came for Eazy.
And there was like 7, 8 motherfuckers that claimed death row waiting for their cars to pull up because they were leaving the Cheesecake Factory. Right when my boy E walked past them, they all surrounded him. What's up? And they were saying the N-word.
That's how much respect he earned. Way before he was signing Chicano rappers or putting Latino voices on the map, Eazy had real ties to the Mexican community. His bond went deep, back to his earliest days rolling with homies like Damon Trujillo, better known as Crazy D. If you look at NWA's first album cover, NWA and the Posse, you'll notice a Mexican dude standing right there in the lineup. That was Crazy D, and he wasn't just for show. He was contributing to the music, even credited on their first single, Panic Zone. That bond between Eazy and the Latino community was real, and it would end up saving his life more than once. Eazy didn't just respect the Latino gangs, he admired them. Their loyalty, their family-first mentality, their willingness to ride no matter what, that energy matched his own spirit. And when things got dangerous, that loyalty turned into his biggest shield.
And all of a sudden, them 7, 8 looked around like, we're surrounded. They thought they were at a Mexican soccer field surrounded by Mexican soccer players, but it was us. I said, what's up, man? You got beef with my brother Eazy? They were like, oh, damn. You got beef with my little brother Eazy? You got beef with me, And then my little homie started coming out with the heat. They were like, no, man.
The Mexican gangs weren't just allies. They were soldiers ready to step up at any moment. And in the ruthless world of LA rap wars, that kind of protection meant everything. Eazy wasn't moving alone, and the skinheads plotting his death weren't just taking on a rapper. They were risking an all-out war with Compton's deadliest crews and their Mexican allies. By the time the tension between Eazy-E and his enemies reached boiling point, his bond with the Mexican community had become legendary. This wasn't just about music deals or collaborations. This was survival. This was war. Years later, Eazy made history when he signed Brownside, a Chicano rap group led by Toker, along with Mexican rap pioneer Kid Frost.
Yeah, Toker, yeah, they were all ruthless, man, yeah. Another dude that ain't no joke. Toker was one of the few cats that I just was nervous.
He's raw as hell, basically.
He just one of them dudes. He's cool. He was super cool.
Yeah.
He's super cool. But you can tell it's a gun somewhere in the vicinity. It's strapped somewhere around here.
Real. These guys ain't rappers. These guys are real gangsters. Because I worked with other gangster rappers. These guys are real.
Back then, labels weren't giving Latino rappers any real shine. Radio wasn't spinning their records, and the mainstream industry wasn't paying attention. But Eazy had vision. He saw the Latino wave coming before anyone else. And more than that, he genuinely believed in these artists because he knew their struggles mirrored his own. These weren't industry plants. Brownside were real street figures with heavy reputations, and that's what drew Eazy in. He respected their energy, their code, and their fearlessness. And that loyalty, it cut both ways. Brownside wasn't just grateful for a record deal, they had Eazy's back like family. The story that proves it best comes from the height of the Ruthless Records versus Death Row beef.
He said, you remember when the KKK had that hit on me? And he said, I bet if something had happened to me, the Mexicans would have been down, you know? And he said, if something happened to me, he goes, I think there would have been a riot.
Back then, Suge Knight was feared like a giant in the rap world. He had muscle, intimidation tactics, and the kind of street rep that made people freeze up the second his name came up. But when it came to Eazy, things weren't so simple. According to Toker, one day Brownside just happened to roll up to Ruthless Records while tension with Death Row was peaking. Suge's crew assumed Eazy was isolated, easy to pressure, maybe even ready to fold. But the second they saw Brownside standing tall with him, the whole vibe flipped. Toker told Eazy straight up, "We're here. Whatever you need, we got you. If anybody needs to disappear, just say the word." That's how far their loyalty stretched. Now Eazy, being who he was, tried to brush it off, playing it cool. He said, "It's not like that, man." But Toker wasn't having it. He hit Eazy with the raw truth. "Nah, it is like that."
He had already signed the Brownside, and then he ended up signing Kid Frost, and had that mind state about it because he knew that that was coming. Like I said, the guy was ahead of his time.
From that point on, Eazy knew he wasn't walking into battles alone. Everywhere he went, meetings, restaurants, award shows, he was rolling deep with Brownside and Mexican hitters who weren't there for show. They weren't industry security, they weren't just entourage, they were serious street soldiers who actually wanted the smoke. They hoped Death Row would test them so they could show what loyalty really meant. And eventually, that showdown came. Toker told the story of one day at the Cheesecake Factory where Eazy was just chilling, trying to enjoy a meal like any regular day. Out of nowhere, 7 or 8 dudes claiming Death Row affiliation rolled up and surrounded him. They thought they had him cornered, ready to intimidate him in public. But here's what they didn't realize. Eazy was never alone. Within moments, Mexican gang members flooded the restaurant, surrounding the Death Row affiliates like sharks circling prey. Toker said it felt like being in the middle of a packed soccer field, with every single face around riding for Eazy.
Eazy had real backup.
Oh yeah, it's still like people still ride for Eazy. Like you know what I'm saying?
Cut your head off, leave it on the porch type backup.
How you hook up with Eazy-E? Cause I mean, you on Ruthless Records now.
Yeah, we plugged up with the homie 3 years ago. He heard our music through some other people, and he met us. He found out we real mother from the streets, you know. So he wanted to fuck with us.
The Death Row crew saw the odds stacked against them and dipped out fast. Cars screeching, tires burning, leaving the scene with their pride shattered. And just to make sure they knew what time it was, Toker shouted after them, "If you want to come back, you're more than welcome. We'll be right here waiting." That wasn't just intimidation, that was dominance, street politics at its highest level. Moments like that prove how shaky some of the so-called legends around Eazy's downfall really are. Take the infamous slap story from straight out of Compton, where Suge Knight supposedly strong-armed Eazy into signing over Dr. Dre's contract. Sounds cinematic, but the people who were actually there, like BG Knockout and Keef D, swore Suge never laid a finger on Eazy. Why? Because if he did, he wouldn't just be declaring war on one rapper. He'd be going to war with the Southside Crips and the Mexican gangs who had Eazy's back. That wasn't a gamble Suge wanted to play with. Even the tale about Suge threatening Eazy with his mom's address doesn't line up when you hear from insiders. They say it was exaggerated, maybe even made up, because with the protection Eazy had, he wasn't the easy target people tried to paint him as.
These guys ain't rappers. These guys are real gangsters.
The proof of that loyalty hits even harder when you look at Eazy's final days. When his health began to collapse and he was at his weakest, he didn't call on industry partners or business allies. He didn't trust executives or fake friends. He turned to Brownside. It was Toker and his crew who drove him to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center when things got critical. That's how real their bond was. And even after Eazy passed away, that loyalty didn't vanish. The Mexican community continued to ride for him, looking after his son Lil Eazy-E and making sure his family knew they weren't alone.
Told me, said, E, we already talked. The homies gonna line up and they gonna grab you and we just gonna lay on the floor. You know, and then whenever it go up, we just gonna grab you and lay on the floor.
That's legacy level loyalty, something money can't buy. But just when it seemed like Eazy had weathered every storm, skinhead kill lists, death row intimidation, and constant street beef, he faced an enemy that no gang ties, no soldiers, no protection could save him from. On March 17th, 1995, from his hospital bed, Eazy went public with a shocking announcement that rocked the hip-hop world. He revealed he had AIDS. The news hit like a bomb. What stunned people even more was how sudden it all came. Eazy said he'd only found out 2 weeks earlier. By the time he went public, he was already in critical condition, hooked up to machines, fighting for his life. And just 9 days later, on March 26, 1995, the rap world lost him. At only 31 years old, at the peak of his career, Eazy-E was gone.
No, it was not true to the story.
Okay.
Here's why it was not true to the story. That last 2 years of his life, Eazy-E was smoking hot. Even though he was sick, he was happy as hell. He had Bone Thugs and Harmony.
The official cause of death was listed as pneumonia, brought on by complications from AIDS. But here's the part that has fueled conspiracy theories for decades: the speed of his decline. People close to him couldn't believe how fast he went from healthy, cocky, and full of energy to death's doorstep. Bone Thugs and Harmony, who were signed to Ruthless Records at the time, said flat out Eazy didn't look sick in his last months. He still had his weight, still carried himself like the same old Eazy. His assistant, Charis Henry, confirmed the same thing. She said, yeah, he wasn't eating much, but he didn't have lesions, dementia, or the signs of late-stage AIDS that you'd expect. So naturally, the whisper started. Was this really natural, or was something else at play?
If he didn't know he got poked, then the conspiracy lives on.
Would you put it past
I don't
Suge?
put shit past nobody.
Then came one of the most infamous moments ever tied to Eazy's death. In 2003, Suge Knight went on Jimmy Kimmel Live and, in a half-joking, half-menacing way, said, "They got this stuff now where they take blood from someone with AIDS and shoot you with it. That's a slow death, the Eazy-E thing." The audience laughed nervously, but for people who lived through that era, it wasn't funny. It sounded like Suge was hinting at something far more sinister. Even Ice Cube later admitted he wouldn't put it past somebody in that world to pull something like that.
When this little situation happened a while back with these Klan people, and they had to hit on you and skinheads, and they had to hit on you and Rodney King and all that.
They wanted to start a race.
And from that moment, the conspiracy theories surrounding Eazy's death only grew louder. By the early 2000s, the rumors around Eazy-E's death had turned into full-blown urban legends. People couldn't accept how a man who looked so alive, so strong, could suddenly fade away in just a matter of weeks. Theories began spreading like wildfire. Some said it was karma, others said it was fate, but many believed it was murder, plain and simple. And when Suge Knight casually dropped that bone-chilling AIDS injection comment on national TV, it didn't just sound like a joke, it sounded like a confession dressed up as entertainment.
Did the FBI ever warn you, or did they just warn like the First A&E Church and Rodney King?
The FBI didn't warn.
Fans, rappers, and insiders all replayed that moment for years, wondering if Suge had just exposed the darkest secret in hip-hop history. But Suge wasn't the only shadow looming over Eazy's death. In 2011, an unsealed FBI document hit the public and turned the whole story upside down again. It revealed that Eazy and even Tupac had been tied to an alleged extortion scheme involving the Jewish Defense League, also known as the JDL. Now, the JDL wasn't some neighborhood watch group. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, they had a long history of violence and terrorist-style tactics both in the U.S. and abroad. And here's the kicker. The FBI papers said Jerry Heller, Eazy-E's own manager, had brought the JDL into the mix to deal with threats from Suge Knight and the skinheads. But the way they operated was straight mafia. The JDL would allegedly make threatening phone calls, issue death threats to rappers, then swoop in offering protection for a price. Basically, they'd create the fire, then sell you the extinguisher.
Did you feel it had anything maybe to do with like a personal vendetta or anything?
I don't know. Maybe they wanted them to get me for real.
The FBI documents even stated outright that Eazy-E was a victim of this extortion scheme before his death. Imagine that Eazy already had white supremacists trying to kill him, death row circling with intimidation, and now a militant group allegedly making money off his fear, all while being brought in by someone he trusted to manage his career. That's a storm few men could ever stand against. And while the FBI papers never pointed a finger directly at Suge or the JDL or anyone else, they painted a picture of a man caught in the crossfire of powerful enemies, shadowy allies, and dark schemes. When you put all that together, the speed of his sickness, the FBI files, the extortion claims, Suge's creepy comments, the idea that Eazy's death was just AIDS feels harder and harder to swallow. His family and closest friends have openly admitted they don't buy the official story. Bone Thugs have said for years they believe foul play was involved. Even Ice Cube said he wouldn't be surprised if Eazy was set up. And with every passing decade, the questions only get louder. Was Eazy-E murdered? If so, who pulled the strings? Was it Suge Knight, scared of losing power?
They wanted to start a race war. But who wanted to? The skinheads?
Yeah, that I was one person that people probably would care about if something was to happen.
Was it white supremacists finally making good on their threats? Was it the JDL working their twisted mob-style hustle? Or was it a combination of all three? No matter where the truth lies, one thing is undeniable. Eazy's death ripped a hole through hip-hop. At just 31 years old, one of the architects of gangsta rap was gone, leaving behind a legacy that was both revolutionary and tragic. But here's what makes his story even more haunting. Unlike other rap legends taken by bullets, Eazy's demise was silent, invisible, and wrapped in mystery. There was no shootout, no police chase, no courtroom justice. Just a sudden sickness that nobody saw coming and a cloud of suspicion that's never faded away. Yet even in death, Eazy's influence lived on in ways few could have predicted. His willingness to sign Brownside and push Chicano rap when nobody else would helped lay the foundation for an entire movement. Latino artists who came after Kid Frost, Cypress Hill, Lil Rob, all the way to present-day Chicano rap stars, owe part of their recognition to the doors Eazy cracked open. His vision wasn't limited to one neighborhood or one culture. He saw unity in the streets where others only saw division. That bond with the Mexican gangs wasn't just about protection, it was about respect, about understanding that the struggle was the same no matter what color you wore. And the streets never forgot that. Even long after his passing, Mexican gangs and Chicano artists continued to honor Eazy's memory. They looked out for his son, Lil Eazy-E, making sure he knew the bond wasn't just his father's, it was his family's. That's the kind of loyalty you can't fake, the type of love that proves Eazy wasn't just another rapper caught up in the system. He was someone who earned real respect in the streets, and that respect didn't die with him. The tragedy of Eazy-E's death is that we'll probably never get the full truth. No charges, no conclusive investigations, no official answers, just rumors, theories, and pieces of evidence that never add up clean. But maybe that's what keeps his story alive. Maybe that's why people still whisper his name when they talk about unsolved mysteries in hip-hop. Because unlike so many others, Eazy wasn't taken out in a way the world could understand. He was erased quietly, suddenly, and suspiciously, and that silence leaves room for legends to grow. Eazy-E's life was a storm of contradictions. He was a gangster and a businessman, a hustler and a visionary, a man hated by the government yet loved by the people. He went toe-to-toe with white supremacists, Suge Knight, and even his own industry, and through it all, he walked with a confidence that made him untouchable, or so it seemed. But in the end, what got him wasn't a gun or a fist. It was something far more sinister, something invisible, something that even decades later doesn't feel like the whole story. So when people ask what really happened to Eazy-E, the only honest answer is, we may never know. But one thing's for sure, his impact can't be erased. He brought the streets to the mainstream, gave a voice to the voiceless, and proved that respect, loyalty, and fearlessness meant more than money or fame. And whether his death was natural or the result of one of the darkest conspiracies in hip-hop history, the fact remains, Eazy-E will forever be remembered as the man who stood in the face of hate, survived battles most couldn't imagine, and built a legacy that still rides strong in the streets of Compton and beyond.